Ahoy, and welcome in to another mind expanding episode of Not Allowed to Die, your podcast about mental health treatment from the therapist perspective. I'm your host, Dan Magler, social worker and life enthusiast, and alongside me, as always, is Mariska, the two-tooth Patterdale Terrier, and she is not licking her paws. And we know what that means, you Mariska-teers, you Mariska-vites. We know it means that you are doing an excellent job of rating, reviewing, and telling a friend about the podcast. So again, if it's the middle of July and you're at the pool and you've got your towel and you're laying out and you're getting your sunblock and you hear somebody talking about mental health treatment, you don't just tell them about Not Allowed to Die. You send them a link and you say click and link and follow so that when Mariska and Dan come out with new information, you can get hot and ready. Mariska also wants me to remind you that we're creating this podcast in part to draw attention to Pause for Patrick. Pause for Patrick is a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing the love of animals to people who need it the most. So if you know a young person, 30 and younger, who could benefit from having an emotional support animal, Pause for Patrick can help them get money to adopt an animal from a shelter, or if they need an ESA letter, they can hook them up with a therapist who can give them that ESA letter they might need to live in no pet housing. Mariska is super duper excited today because you know she loves it when we have a guest. And today we don't just have a guest, we have an excellent guest, a musical guest, an artist. So Mandi Leigh is a Canadian folk country rock singer-songwriter who sees music as a tool for healing, growth, and connection. Through honest storytelling and vulnerable songwriting, she explores life's challenges, including grief, loss, and resilience, creating space for others to feel seen, understood, and less alone. So, Mandi, we are so excited to have you here today. And can you tell us a little bit about you and your story and how you got here?
Thank you so much for having me. Very gladly. So I started to write music with an alt rock band, and really early on, I recognized that the process of writing lyrics was very, very healing. And at the end of 2022 or 2020, sorry, I lost a few people very close to me, and I started on this health journey, which included emotional health, sexual health, mental health. I realized it was all encompassing, and something I really had wanted to do was learn to play guitar. So I worked with a teacher who recognized really early on I liked to write, and she encouraged me to write songs that had chord progressions that I wanted to work on, and all this music just started pouring out of me. And like the first song I wrote about a friend of mine who I lost to suicide, and it was a conversation I didn't know I needed to have. It was feelings and things I wanted to say to him that I didn't know how to until I wrote the song. And I now get to play that song and think about him and talk to him. And I've realized in my journey that as I've been writing music and working through things within myself, I'm able to heal and honor those parts of me and those things that I've been through, and share them with other people too, and connect with other people through my music, and they receive it through their own lens. So it's been a very powerful experience and a very fulfilling experience writing and sharing my stories and connecting with other people through the songs that I write. So that's
So,
me.
no, I mean, I love that so much because it sounds like, again, you didn't go into it with, you just started wanting to learn about guitar. And then the things that were inside started to come out. And I often
Yeah.
say in mental health, the best thing that a person can do is express. So sometimes people will talk about, working out, doing other things, but that can help us deal with stress. But unless we're expressing through drawing, writing, painting, anything, we're not getting the emotions and feelings out. Were there any things as you started writing, you said kind of, you weren't even sure, you didn't even realize how much you needed to get, but what kind of surprised you when you started writing? And did you ever have, after a day of writing music, kind of an emotional hangover of like, oh my God, I'm more tired than I realized I was going to be. So any surprises that kind of came to you in your writing process that you're like, wow, gosh, I really needed to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily dealt to specifically with Mark, but like there's one song in particular that popped up when you asked that question. It's going to be in my next record. It's called Before It All Changes, and it was about someone that I was dating that it was really soon into our seeing each other that he found out he had brain cancer. and I've had like grew up with an alcoholic father and didn't really have like the notion of love and being in love, and my experiences of love had always been a little bit more difficult, and I realized the way that this person that had the brain cancer treated me was something I'd always been kind of looking for, and I loved him for it. And I was sitting writing this song about him and about our connection, and in the middle of the song, I remember, right, like the lyrics are, I can't rearrange the feelings for you. I've tried, but I love you. And as soon as I realized that that was the words, like I started just bawling because I was like, I recognized like this love that I'd been kind of looking for, and recognizing how love felt for me and just being able to release it. Like it took me a while to recover from that song because it brought out this, it was so much more than just my connection with him. It was connections with my dad. It was the bad relationships I've had in the past, like all of the things, all of the stuff around the word love just got to come out because I kind of was able to experience that with myself or recognize that in myself.
Now, it's one thing to actually to write and to create music, but then how did you start the process of performing and sharing your music? So how did that process start for you?
I was very lucky to have a really close friend of mine, TJ. She was recording her own music. She'd been doing music her whole life. And she was doing a big opening like release for her music, and I just started to write, and she said, well, why don't you come play some of your songs? And I hired a guitar player to come play for me because I was still very new to playing guitar at that point. And just the room of people I never met, just I saw how they responded to me. They loved my voice, they loved the stories. I had this one woman who's also, her name is Tanya. She came up to me after. She's like, my daughter has a really, really, really hard time like expressing herself and expressing her emotions. And your song, Mark's song, she was crying. She responded to it, and she got a release out of hearing me sing about my song. So that's kind of how it started. Just like the first time I share music, I'm able to help connect with this teenager that was having a hard time feeling her emotions and expressing her emotions. I'm like, something is here and I have to keep going and keep writing. So here I am years later about to record my second record. So
Are there ever times when, it's time to perform a song and you're saying, I'm a little too vulnerable to get into that space right now. I shouldn't perform that song. Or like, is it hard to get, like when you're putting a set list together, are you thinking
mhm.
like, gosh, this song takes me to an emotional place. It'll be hard to do that upbeat song right at, like, is that a part of when you're structuring sets, how you decide what song is going to go one after another? Or at this point, is it more just about the performance and the music? Does it not affect you emotionally in the same way every time you sing it?
I mean, it still does affect me emotionally, definitely, but I tend to cater my set list to like the vibe of where I'm playing. So when I'm playing at a brewery and like a Sunday afternoon, everyone's there just have a good time and have some drinks and eat some food. I'm not going to be singing Mark's song in the corner talking about, suicide. So I do, but I also don't want to just not talk about it either. So I try and find like the moments, or if there's like a quiet time in the set list or kind of in the middle of the first set where I'm kind of easing into it, then I'll bring up some of the more emotional songs, and then I will always try and follow it with something more upbeat just to kind of keep people on a nice little roller coaster and not like down in the depths of being emotional. But yeah, I still feel it all the time, and I close my eyes and I have to catch myself sometimes when I'm singing some songs because it reminds me of people, or reminds me of the person, and I have to remember I'm singing in front of people
Mhm.
and I have to keep myself together. But I
I,
have
I,
cried on stage many times.
but as an audience member, I think I love that authenticity from an artist when I can really tell that what they're performing is truly still having an impact on them. So I encourage you to keep crying on stage and whatnot.
Thank
But
you.
in addition to, the writing and the singing, what other, I know you've done a number of different modalities and techniques for healing because your path through life has not been simple, not been easy. So what
Mhm.
are some things that you say to yourself, I wish, in addition to exploring through music, what are some other things that you wish more people knew about from a mental health treatment perspective that you felt have been really transformational for you?
When I first experienced suicide, like right after, Mark was the first person that I'd ever really lost in my life that I was close to. So not only was he the closest person I ever lost, but he was a friend, he was a lover, he was my landlord, he was like so involved with me in my life. It was a really, really tough thing to have to go through. And I tried some like therapists that I would meet up with and speak with. And I just found that by just talking about it all the time, it was triggering. It wasn't helping me actually process the feelings to be able to talk about it with people without crying. So I luckily found this amazing woman that did process therapy. And like when she explained it, when we talk about trauma, we're only able to access like a certain depth of where we're actually storing, that trauma. And process therapy is meant to, like, you would cover one eye and she would see have my other eye follow her fingers, and she would see where I would skip over little spots in my vision. And that is where I stored trauma on a much deeper, more subconscious level. And she would process it. We have to work my way through it. And you still get into the feelings and then you process the feelings. And it went from it being just so incredibly traumatic to even think about Mark and all the things that led up to his death. But I can talk about like getting the text message from him. I could talk about the knock on the door from the cops and like my reaction when I really fell onto the floor and couldn't get up. And it wasn't such an emotional response. I still felt it, but I think there's just different ways that we process trauma and grief, and sometimes it takes more than one way to do it. And I found process therapy was really, really, really helpful for me because I didn't just have to sit and talk about it all the time. I was able to process it without it being a dialogue each time.
Yeah, and I think it's so awesome that you really took us concretely through how that works, because trauma is actually damage to the brain. It's really carving itself in there on a level that is, it's not just about talking about things. It's about, we have to do, just like a neurologist might have a person close their eyes and stand and try to touch their nose, like on one foot. Like there's things that are going on literally in the brain. And so it may feel weird. How are these things impacted? But when the brain has been impacted by something, we may need to tap into different neural networks in order to heal. Now, I know another area that you and I kind of have in common is in our belief of how animals can be effective in helping. So, can you talk a little
Yes.
bit about how animals have helped you in your healing and your continued mental health journey and you're just processing through life?
Gladly. Well, I had a cat, Marley. He was my main man for 15 years, and he passed away. So my boyfriend broke up with me when my grandfather got really, really sick, and then like we had gotten this puppy together named Bailey, and I would bring Bailey to go see my papa all the time. Papa is grandpa to me. Papa. And when he got really sick, we were 24/7 with him all the time. We were all taking turns, like being there during the day. We slept over overnight. So he was not alone at the last couple weeks of his life. And the first night that I did my sleepover, I brought Bailey with me, and she went right into her crate, no problems, like went to sleep, was an angel. And then the second night that I spent there, she was incredibly restless. She would not rest. She kept jumping. She kept whining, and it forced me to have to sit down on the ground and pay attention to her and interact with her. And in hindsight, I realized by her doing that, she made it so I wasn't just sitting beside my papa, like watching his breathing and waiting for it to be over. It gave me someone. I wasn't alone in that experience. Had it been anyone else in my family, they would have been there by themselves. But I had Bailey there with me, and just her, she had to have known. Like dogs know, animals know, when that's going to happen. And a couple weeks later, Marley got really sick. My cat, my 15-year-old cat, it was a very tough couple months in my life. And I remember sitting there wanting to thank Marley being there with me through it all. And I'm like, well, he can't understand the words, but maybe he'll feel the song. So I actually wrote him a song too. And I get to play that song and thank him for being there with me through it all. And it ended up in turn being about my papa too. Like my dad wasn't around, so my grandpa was the male influence in my life. And I think music and and the animals really helped me process like those losses and that grief, and I can still like remember them through the song, and it's going to be on my next record too, so I'm excited to be able to share that with other people.
Well, that's, what I love about our conversation today so much is that we're talking about the fact that people heal in so many different ways. And those things are not in competition. Music and animals and writing and therapy, they're a blend. And for each individual, that blend is going to look different. I don't I don't know anybody who doesn't have music as some part of their healing and mental health journey. But
Mm-hmm.
and again, for the vast majority of people, animals are a part of that too. But that's the point. Is it's not supposed to be one thing or the other. It's about finding our path to healing through using a combination of those things. Well,
Yes.
speaking of some of the things that, performing, you've said, and I'm hoping I can press you into this, that maybe you would perform something for us today. So have you
Right.
thought of, are you available to do that? Are you willing to share one of your songs with us today?
I think so. Yeah, I have my guitar here. It's all plugged in, ready to go, just in case the opportunity arose. Yes, I do need. Don't have my capo though, so that's gonna limit what I can play. So I know what I'm gonna do. So here's my brand new baby. This is Whiskey.
That's beautiful.
See if I can do this gracefully. Probably not, but we made it. We're here. Okay. So I was kind of thinking, I mean, it would be great if I could do through it all for you guys, but why don't I play Mark's song? I
That'd
think
be really
that's
great.
yeah, I don't need a cable for that too, so it's a win-win. So when I first started writing guitar or learning guitar, this was the first song that I wrote. This is the conversation I didn't need to have with Mark. So hopefully you guys like it. Sitting there thinking about you, my how was I to know it would be the end? Ooh, I miss you. Look in your eyes, whispers in my ear. Crazy, but sometimes I still feel you near. Ooh, I miss you, my friend. Miss you the most, even though I'm still chasing your goal. Why'd you leave me all alone? Wondering why you chose to say goodbye. Take your own life. Do, 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 do. I miss you. I miss you. I miss you, my friend.
Oh, that was so beautiful.
Thank you. I haven't played that in a while too. Eh, not graceful.
As you get your
Not graceful at all. There we go. Woohoo! We did it. We did it.
so how does that, when you find yourself like, going into that song, like, are you thinking of like just chord progressions? Or are you thinking about like him and like whatnot? Like how much of the experience, right, as you start to perform is happening for you, and then how much is it just technically about like, all right, how I have to move my fingers and this the remembering the words and whatnot?
I definitely when I play that song and when I'm playing songs about anything in my life, I'm thinking about that person, that situation, that experience. So, I mean, playing that song, I feel like I'm actually talking to him when I play it, and um, I'm actually asking him the question. It's just that's why when I was writing at the end, I couldn't think of any more words to say. It was just these do do do's with this feeling behind it, and
Mhm.
um Yeah, it's less about, I mean, this time I was thinking a little bit more about my fingers and what I'm
Yeah.
doing, but I find like I've played the song so many times, muscle memory kind of kicks in, and I'm able to just enjoy and experience and feel the song in the moment.
Well, and I guess I think that's another question that for so many suicide loss survivors, it's a similar question on how are they feeling when they're thinking about that person and as they're moving through their feelings of grief. And I guess that, where we all want to get to is that place where it sounds like you are with this song, which is where when we can think of the person that we lost, when I think of my nephew who I lost to suicide, when I think of Patrick Romer, who I lost to suicide, that when I think of them, there isn't that just pain as much as there is the appreciation and the gratitude that I'm feeling that I got to know that person at all. Is that like, and again, I'm sure you have your good days and your bad days with that, with not just
Yeah.
Mark, but with all kinds of people and experiences where you've had loss. But is that for you with, and I think that's, again, the other thing I liked about the tone of that song so much is that it's not just a like a sad dark song, it's a song about love. I mean, you can just feel that energy coming through it. So
Mhm.
does that express a little bit about where you are in your grief progression when you think of him or other people in your world?
Yeah, I mean, I I'm at a point now where I can talk about him and I can talk about the experience, and it's not like in a big emotional reaction, I guess. But I definitely feel like I'm at a point, yeah, like I'm able to, like, anything that I've written in the song, I've been able to process my way through it. And then the song is kind of like me being able to sit and just reflect on like the journey that I went through to be able to remember that person and be grateful for having them in my life and for the experiences that we have, and also too being on the other side of the suicide and just how much it's changed me, and had I not been through that, I wouldn't be who I am now. And even though it's sad and traumatic and there's a lot of stuff that lingers and you have good and bad days around it, I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't be making this music. I wouldn't be sharing it. I wouldn't have decided to move across the country to pursue my music career had I not lost him and lost him the way that I did. So it's definitely getting to honor the all of the him as a whole and all the ways he affected my life, both good and bad.
Now, do you have a process for writing? Do you say every day I'm going to sit there for 48 minutes and sit and write, or you say like just when something strikes you? Like, how does that? Whether it's for fiction writers or anybody, I'm always fascinated by this idea of can you turn it seems like it'd be so challenging to turn on the tap of creativity, but I've heard from a lot of people it does need to be a process, and there's maybe 95% of it needs to get tossed and we'll to get something that's good.
Mhm.
So for you, can you
Mhm.
take us a little bit inside of do you sit with the process, or do you just like wait for, oh, I was at the McDonald's drive through and I heard a cool sound and now I want to so how does that process work for you?
Well, I like my personal process. I was in a car accident in 2013. So I have very small hands and stubby fingers. So there's certain chords I actually can't play. So for me, I have to sit with the guitar and I'll like pick a number between 1 and 9, and I'll put my capo on a fret and I'll just start playing. And I'll have a chord that kind of hits me, and or I'll have like something that I'm feeling where I can tell, or I've had a lyrics come into my head or a situation that I'm like, oh, I need to write about this. And then I'll hit a chord and I'll be like, oh, this reminds me of this. Like it's just interesting how like that chord or that strumming pattern will all of a sudden be like, oh, this okay, I can hear a melody now, or like I like the way that sounds now. How am I feeling? Why? What am I feeling? And how do I put that into a melody and into words? So that's my personal process. I start with the guitar. I start with a chord or a chord progression, and then I'm in a certain state of feeling at that point where I then like, what am I feeling right now, and what do I want to talk about, and what do I have to say right now about this thing that I'm thinking about? So that's my process.
Are there certain topics like mental health topics or relationship topics that you haven't had a song about yet, but that you feel like, okay, I really do want to explore healing from toxic relationships or things like that, where you're just saying like, oh,
I have
there's
a
a
few of
song that's
those.
coming. I don't have it yet, but I know that there's something out there that I'm going to be wanting to, there's something in my brain
Mhm.
that I'm going to be wanting to touch on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a song, and I can tell like I say it's brewing. I can feel it. But my grandpa, my papa, his saying was "Bye for now." Like I actually have that's his writing, and he loved Eagles. So I know like he didn't like to say goodbye. He said bye for now. And I just love that idea of for a song. And I wrote a little ditty for him for his service, but I want to make like an actual song that kind of explores that like not saying goodbye, saying bye for now, and just being hopeful to see that person again, but also just like enjoying that moment you get to spend with them because you don't know if it's going to be the last time too. So there's definitely something in there that I want to write. Yeah, that's one thing.
Now, do you feel like with the album you put out, this is your second album now that you're putting out, are there kind of themes to it, or it's just like, hey, this is the music that came up, or do you feel like there's a difference? Like, if you had to summarize, was there kind of a theme to your first album, and what's changed? Has there been or is there something different that you wanted to say, or it's just like, no, these are just the songs that came up between when I came up with my first album and this one? So, are there any kind of themes to that?
Well, Emotional Highs, which is the EP that's out now, those were the first songs that just came out of me when I started to write. So there's a couple songs about Mark. There's a couple breakup songs. I had a narcissistic ex that I let back into my life. And so when he was there, I started writing When I'm Gone, and but not the words in front of him, just the melody and the chords. And then of course one last big argument, same old, same old. And rather than engage in the argument, I just sat in the living room and I played that song and I never heard from him again. Like that's the power of music. Uh, but there are this next record. I wanted it to be, I mean, I've realized like a Mandi Leigh show was going to be emotional anyways, because I'm just writing about very genuine experiences and writing about things I've been through. But I wanted to try and do it in a more kind of upbeat, catchier way. So I'm moving more into like the Americana, which is still a blend of country, folk, and rock, but kind of more upbeat musicality. But a lot of the music is still about, you know, the healing. There's still a song about Mark in there that I wrote back when I wrote Emotional Highs. The song just didn't make it on the record. And then Marley's song, Through It All, and a lot about just my where I'm at now, the growth, and how I've been doing better and finding ways to recognize patterns and recognize ways I've gotten in my own way, and where I'm at in the healing process now is a theme that's showing up in my music. And this wonderful man that's moved across the country with me, he has a song in there, a love song. So just it's more, yeah, just more a positive emotional experience in this next record, I think, but still about healing and growth and doing better.
Who are some artists that you listen to when you want to touch on, like, say, you're like, oh, I'm in a sad mood. I need to put on some of so and so, or I need inspiration now. Are there any artists that, like, you're like, these are the people who press my emotional buttons that you're saying, this person needs a little bit more shine? Like, everybody's heard of, Paul Simon, but not everybody's heard of, so anybody that you want to give a shot to say, hey, check out this other person in addition.
So there's a band, and they're from the States. I think they're from Oklahoma. They're called the Teskey Brothers, and they're actually opening up for Chris Stapleton. So they're starting to get really big. I'm gonna miss them. They're in Vancouver, but the lead singer's voice, like he's just got this like incredible, emotional, soulful, like bluesy voice that I love. That when I want to get emotional or just get into the feeling and get into the music, I love putting them on. But my musical influences like Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac, Amy Winehouse, Adele, Sarah Bareilles, all just incredible female vocalists that I look up to a lot. And if I want to get rockier, I do some Pat Benatar, some Bonnie Raitt or Bonnie Tyler or Susan Tedeschi. What a wonderful woman. So I find, yeah, I listen to a lot of, yeah, alt country rock, alt rock, that kind of stuff. Those are some of the people that have inspired me, definitely.
That's awesome. So now you're currently going around Canada performing. And so, how's that experience? Because that's a pretty big area to be performing. Are you focusing mostly on like Vancouver? Are you going to Toronto? Like, I mean, this big country to hit. So, where have you been going to perform?
Well, I just moved from British Columbia to Ontario to Toronto. So we did an 18 stop tour. So we went all over Alberta, like in Edmonton a couple of times, Calgary, Lethbridge, Lundbreck, a little town in like southern Alberta. I was in Banff for a day. And then I stopped off in Swift Current and Saskatoon and Gimli and Brandon, Manitoba.
Oh,
And then yeah, and then we wound up in Kenora and Thunder Bay and Sudbury before we landed in Toronto like 2 weeks ago, almost 2.5 weeks ago. June 15th is when we got here. And it was like wild has been the word of that tour because we experienced every single type of weather, including a mosquito storm where we thought it was raining, but it was just mosquitoes were so thick they
ugh.
covered the front of the camper. Got to meet so many cool people and connect with so many of them through my music, and saw parts of Canada I'd never seen before. And I'm incredibly hooked on the experience of touring because I get to just go town to town and see new places and just meet people from different walks of life that have different lifestyles, but we still all come together to like have a good time and listen to some music and connect. And I love it so much. I mean, I'm here in Toronto now and I'm starting to record, and this is kind of base camp now, but I'll record this next record and go back out on tour again. So I'll go back to all the places that I played at. It was a wonderful, wild experience.
Well, for those of you people who can't see you as you're touring around Canada, where are some best places for them to find your music?
Anywhere you stream music, I'm on Spotify. I like Apple, YouTube, Amazon Music under Mandi Leigh. It's spelled the way Mandi, Mandileigh. I have the 7 songs that are out there right now, which is the Emotional Highs EP. If you go to my website, which is mandileigh.com, you'll find links to everywhere on there. You'll find links to where you can stream it, to where you can actually download my album and have a much higher quality of recording, and a little booklet with all the lyrics and like the pictures and the album art that I created for the record. Um, yeah, I'm on Instagram on Mandalay Music on Instagram. And YouTube probably the best place because I've been uploading more little clips and videos of live performances of me there. So if you want to know what it's like to be at a Mandi Leigh show, definitely go to Mandi Makes Music on YouTube.
But is the Instagram where they might find like tour dates and things like that? Do you put that
Yeah.
out on Insta? Okay, so
I
for
put try to put it everywhere. I post it like I post it on my Facebook, I post it on Instagram, and then I actually have like the upcoming gigs list on my website too. So it's really easy to find out where you'll be able to see me next.
any other suggestions or advice you would give to people who are, whether they're a poet, whether they're whatever, and they're trying to get going, but they get either caught with writer's block or they don't have enough belief that what they have to. I don't know if you ever struggle with this, but this idea of imposter syndrome and the idea that will anybody actually want to listen to what I have to say. So any tips or advice for people who are listening who might have those feelings?
I would say definitely do it anyways. Like, even if it's messy, even if you think people aren't going to like it, do it for yourself at first. And just if you get that writer's block or you're not sure it's good enough, it's okay to put it down and come back to it. Because sometimes, like the one of the songs on my next record, I started writing in September. And it took me until getting here in Toronto for me to finish it because I kept getting to a certain point. I get stuck. I'm like, I don't know what the song's about. I don't know what I want to say. Like, I have no idea what to do with the chorus. And so I would leave it and I would come back to it like a month later and be like, how am I doing now with it? So it's, I think, yeah, just do it and do it anyways. Do it despite how you feel, do it despite, um, what you may think about it. And if you are feeling comfortable, my I didn't really like click for me until I just went to like open mics or put myself in front of people anyways. And you'll be surprised how people respond to your art because we're all looking at things through our own lenses, and what you may think isn't good, someone may really, really connect with. So getting your art in front of people and seeing how people react and being open to how people respond to it, I think is important. So do it.
Yeah, and I think that, for those people, it is as we talked about earlier with the crying on stage. What people, especially in this time period where AI is creating things that seem too perfect, I think things that are truly
Mhm.
vulnerable and maybe imperfect, like Louis Armstrong's voice was not a beautiful voice. AI never would have created Louis Armstrong's voice. But when
No.
I listen to Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, like, it transports me. Bruce Springsteen's voice is an atypical thing, or Bob Dylan, or any of them. So you don't have to be like, you don't have to have a voice like Mandy. You don't have to have a perfect voice in order to get it out there. And it is sometimes those little flaws that make it real, that make it personal. And so, yeah, don't wait. Create and share. And who knows if it affects one person, if it moves one person's needle in their life to feel seen, or they take something that you as a writer never intended. And I think, Mandy, you were kind of touching on that there's what you were intending when you were writing, but then other people, they may take something from that wasn't even necessarily what you meant, but it hits them and it carries them. And I think that's happened to all of us. And the artist might not have intended what we are getting out of that song, but it's
Mhm.
helping carry us through a tough patch.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, we want to thank you so much for having joined us. And so I encourage everyone who's listening to this to please go do yourself a favor, check out Mandi Leigh's music, and there's going to be something for you in it, whatever emotions that you're wanting to feel, or just for entertainment. Sometimes we don't need to listen to music to get all the feelings. Sometimes we just want to rock out in the car. But
Exactly.
so use music, use whatever and just as we always say, do whatever it takes to get you through this world. And remember, you are just not allowed to die.
Mm.